I need you to hear this clearly, because I want you to understand exactly what kind of person my sister is before I tell you what I did about it. My children, my 3 children who had been talking about this family trip for 8 straight months, who had made countdown chains out of paper and hung them in their bedrooms, who had asked me every single morning for weeks if it was time yet, found out they had been removed from the trip through a group text. Not a phone call, not a conversation. A group text that my sister sent to every adult in the family at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night, casually, like she was changing a restaurant reservation, not like she was ripping the floor out from under 3 kids who had done absolutely nothing wrong. And here's the part that I need you to sit with for a moment. By the time I read that text, I had already booked something else, something better. Something so far beyond what my sister had planned that by the end of this story, the only person in our family who ended up truly disappointed was her. My name is Renee. I am 47 years old, and I have one sister named Claudette who is 43. We grew up in the same house in Alabama, shared a bedroom until I left for college, and for most of our adult lives maintained what I would have described, until about 18 months ago, as a genuinely close relationship. Not without friction. Every sibling relationship has friction, but close in the ways that matter, the kind of closeness built on shared history and inside jokes and the particular shorthand that only exists between people who watched each other grow up. I have 3 children. Marcus is 15, Jade is 12, and my youngest, Coop, whose real name is Cooper but who has gone by Coop since he learned to talk, is 8 years old. They are good kids, genuinely good, the kind that strangers compliment you on in grocery stores, not because they are perfect but because they are kind and curious and the sort of people you actually enjoy spending time with once they are old enough to be real company. Claudette has 2 children. Her daughter Sienna is 13 and her son Braden is 10. Claudette's husband is named Darnell, a quiet, conflict-avoidant man who I have always liked personally and who I genuinely feel sorry for in ways I am only now fully articulating to myself. The family trip had been Claudette's idea from the beginning. She brought it up at Thanksgiving 2 years ago, a big family reunion-style vacation, everyone together, the cousins getting quality time, the kind of trip that becomes a memory the children carry for the rest of their lives. She proposed Hawaii. A full week, a large rental house, everyone splitting costs proportionally based on how many people each family was bringing. It sounded wonderful. It sounded exactly like the kind of thing our mother, who passed 4 years ago, would have organized herself if she were still here, and I think that was part of why everyone responded to the idea so warmly. It felt like honoring something. We spent the better part of a year planning. Dates were agreed upon. A rental house was identified and held with a deposit. Everyone made their financial contributions to a shared planning fund that Claudette managed, and the children were told. That last part matters enormously because children, once told about something wonderful that is coming, build their entire emotional world around it in a way that adults sometimes forget to account for. Marcus started researching snorkeling spots. Jade made a list of things she wanted to photograph because she had recently become serious about photography, and Hawaii represented, in her 12-year-old mind, the ultimate subject matter. And Coop, my sweet 8-year-old Coop, drew a picture of our whole family on a beach that he taped to the refrigerator, all of us with enormous smiles and the ocean impossibly blue behind us, and every single morning he would point to it while eating his cereal and say something about what he was going to do when we got there. For 8 months, that drawing stayed on my refrigerator. For 8 months my kids went to sleep dreaming about that trip. And then Claudette sent the text. It arrived at 11:14 on a Tuesday night in the group chat that included me, my brother-in-law Darnell, my husband Jerome, our Aunt Patricia who was also planning to join the trip, and Claudette's closest friend Vivian who had been included in the planning late as an extra adult who would help with childcare costs. The text said, and I am going to tell you exactly what it said because the specific words matter. Hey everyone, just a quick update on the Hawaii planning. Jerome and I have talked, and we've decided to adjust the group size for the trip. We're going to keep it to immediate family this time, meaning just our household. We think it'll be more manageable and the dynamic will be better for the kids. Renee, I'll have Darnell reach out about refunding your contribution. Hope everyone understands it's just what works best for us right now. Jerome and I have talked. Jerome is my husband. Claudette had spoken to my husband, apparently, about removing my children from a trip they had been promised for 8 months, before she sent a group text informing me of the decision. I read that sentence 4 times before the full shape of it landed. I called Jerome immediately, not caring that it was nearly midnight. He answered on the second ring, already awake, and before I could say anything he said, "Renee, I just saw it. I did not talk to her about this. I have not spoken to Claudette in 2 weeks. She is lying." I believed him instantly and completely because Jerome is not a complicated man. He does not have the patience or the inclination for deception, and the confusion in his voice was entirely real. So Claudette had not only removed my children from the trip without a single conversation with me, she had fabricated a detail to make it appear as though the decision had some form of paternal endorsement it absolutely did not have. I put my phone down on the nightstand, lay back on my pillow, and stared at the ceiling for a long time while Jerome talked through his own anger beside me. I heard him. I understood every word he said. But somewhere underneath the hurt and the shock and the fury that was rising in my chest, something else was happening, something quieter and more purposeful. Because here's what Claudette did not know when she sent that text. 3 weeks earlier, before any of this, I had done something completely unrelated to the Hawaii trip that was about to become the most important decision I had made in years. Let me explain. My children's godmother is a woman named Sylvia, my closest friend since college, who works as a senior travel coordinator for a luxury travel company and who has, over the years, occasionally put together extraordinary travel experiences for close friends at her professional rate rather than standard consumer pricing. Sylvia had called me about a month before Claudette's text to tell me about a cancellation that had just opened up, a fully curated private trip package for a family of 5 to Bora Bora, over water bungalows, private snorkeling guide, sunset sailing excursion, a children's photography workshop that Sylvia had immediately thought of for Jade, and a junior marine biology experience that she thought Coop would lose his mind over. The original booking family had a medical emergency and canceled with enough notice to allow Sylvia to reassign the package. The price, at Sylvia's professional courtesy rate, was remarkable. Not cheap. Nothing involving overwater bungalows in Bora Bora is cheap, but remarkable given what was included and what it would have cost at full consumer rate. I had said yes. I had put down the deposit 3 weeks before Claudette sent her text. I had not told my children yet because I wanted to wait until everything was fully confirmed, and I had not told Claudette because at the time there was no reason to. It was my own family's separate vacation and my sister's Hawaii trip and Bora Bora were simply 2 different trips planned for 2 different times of year. When I lay on my pillow staring at the ceiling after reading Claudette's text, I was doing the quiet math of a woman who had just realized that what felt like a disaster was actually something else entirely. My children were not losing a trip. They were being freed from one. I did not respond to the group text that night. I did not call Claudette. I turned off my phone, told Jerome to get some sleep, and let everything settle in my mind until morning. In the morning, before my children woke up, I called Sylvia. I told her what had happened and asked her to confirm the Bora Bora booking was fully secured. She confirmed it completely and then said, with the particular satisfaction of a woman who has known me for 25 years and understands exactly what I am capable of when I am being quiet, "Renee, I cannot wait to see how this plays out." Then I woke my children up for school, made breakfast, said nothing about the Hawaii trip or Claudette's text, and watched Coop point at his refrigerator drawing on his way out the door. That drawing stayed on my refrigerator for 2 more weeks. I had a reason for leaving it there, which I will explain in a moment. Over those 2 weeks, the family group chat was a study in discomfort. Aunt Patricia sent a carefully worded message saying she was surprised by the change and hoped everyone was doing all right. Darnell sent nothing, which told me everything I needed to know about how much he had actually been consulted in his wife's decision. Vivienne, Claudette's friend, quietly removed herself from the chat entirely, which was its own kind of statement. Claudette sent nothing further, no explanation, no elaboration, operating with the breezy confidence of someone who had made a decision and considered it closed. Jerome wanted to confront Claudette directly. I asked him to wait. He's a man who loves me enough to trust my silences even when he does not fully understand them, and he waited. My phone rang 12 days after the group text. It was Claudette, calling with the particular energy of someone who has convinced themselves that enough time has passed to make an uncomfortable thing comfortable again. She opened with how busy she had been, mentioned something about Sienna's school schedule, and then said, in the breezy tone I had heard her use her entire life when she was navigating toward something she wanted, "So are we good, Renee?" I know the text was probably a shock, but honestly it's going to be better this way, more intimate. You know how it gets when there are too many people trying to coordinate. Too many people. My 3 children were too many people. I said, "Claudette, can I ask you something directly?" She said, "Of course," still breezy. "Did you actually speak to Jerome before sending that text?" A buzz. Brief but present. "I mean, we had talked generally about the trip dynamics." "That is not what your text said. Your text said Jerome and you had talked and agreed to the change. Jerome says he has not spoken to you in 2 weeks." Another pause, longer this time. "Renee, I was just trying to soften the message. I didn't think the exact wording would be." "You use my husband's name to give your decision credibility that it didn't have," I said, still calm, still even. "I just wanted you to know that I know that." Claudette shifted immediately into the register she has used since childhood when she feels cornered, a kind of wounded reasonableness, explaining that she was under enormous stress with the trip planning, that coordinating so many people had become overwhelming, that she had made the decision out of necessity rather than any desire to hurt anyone. I let her talk. I did not argue. I did not cry. I did not tell her about Bora Bora. When she finished, I said simply, "I understand. I hope Hawaii is everything you're planning for it to be," and I ended the call. This was the first twist, the one only I knew about yet. While Claudette believed she was managing the situation, smoothing things over, moving past an uncomfortable moment with minimal damage, the trip she had removed my children from was already irrelevant. They were going somewhere she had never even thought to dream about for them. But the story does not end there, because life is a way of adding layers that even careful planning cannot fully anticipate. About 3 weeks after my conversation with Claudette, I received a call from Aunt Patricia that introduced the first piece of information I genuinely had not known. Patricia, who is my mother's older sister and who has the particular frankness of a 71-year-old woman who has decided she is entirely too old to manage other people's comfort at the expense of truth, told me something that recontextualized everything. She told me that 2 months before Claudette sent that group text, Claudette had called Patricia privately and asked whether Patricia would be willing to contribute an additional amount to the trip fund, beyond what had already been agreed, specifically to cover some upgrades Claudette wanted to make to the rental house. Patricia had said she could not manage an additional contribution on her fixed income, and Claudette had said, Patricia told me with audible discomfort, that she was going to have to reconsider the guest list if the budget did not come together the way she needed it to. My children had not been removed from the trip because the group was too large or the coordination too complex. My children had been removed because Claudette needed to reduce costs after losing an expected contribution, and my family, with 3 children requiring accommodation, represented the largest reduction available. My children were a budget decision. Coops drawing on my refrigerator, Marcus's snorkeling research, Jade's photography plans, all of it had been erased not because of logistics or family dynamics, but because my sister needed to save money and chose not to have a single honest conversation with me about it. This was the second twist, and it landed differently than the first because it removed any remaining ambiguity about what had actually happened. This had not been an impulsive decision made under planning stress. It had been calculated, and the calculation had never once included picking up the phone and talking to me like a sister. I told Jerome that evening. He sat with it quietly in the way he does when he is genuinely angry, the stillness that in 20 years of marriage I have learned means he is making sure he thinks before he speaks. Then he said, "When are we telling the kids about Bora Bora?" I said, "Saturday." On Saturday morning I took the paper chain countdown from Marcus's room, the one he had stopped updating after Claudette's text but had not taken down, and I replaced each paper link with a new one, Bora Bora written on every single one in my handwriting, and I hung it back on his door without telling him. Then I called all 3 kids into the kitchen, sat them down at the table, and told them that the Hawaii trip had changed but that we were going somewhere else instead, and I put the Bora Bora brochure Sylvia had sent me in the center of the table. I want to try to describe what happened in that kitchen for the next 20 minutes because I think it is the emotional center of this entire story. Marcus, my 15-year-old who had been so carefully, quietly hurt by the Hawaii cancellation and had not once complained about it to protect me, picked up that brochure and read it in complete silence for a full minute before looking up with an expression I have not seen on his teenage face in years, the open, unguarded joy of a child who has just been handed something wonderful. Jade burst into tears immediately, the happy kind, and started asking about the photography workshop before she had even finished reading the description. And Coop, my 8-year-old Coop, looked at the overwater bungalow on the cover for a long moment before looking up at me and saying with absolute sincerity, "Mommy, is that our house on the water?" I told him yes, baby, that was going to be our house on the water. He got down from his chair, walked to the refrigerator, took down the drawing he had made of our family on the beach, brought it back to the table, and carefully drew water under the house in the picture, turning the beach scene into something that looked, in his 8-year-old hand, remarkably like an overwater bungalow. Then he put it back on the refrigerator and said, "Fixed it," and went to find his shoes. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried for approximately 4 minutes, the kind of crying you do when relief and love and gratitude all arrive at the same time, and then I washed my face and went back to my family. The third twist arrived about 6 weeks later, from a direction I had not anticipated, and it changed the entire final shape of this story in a way that felt, when it happened, less like coincidence and more like the universe completing a thought it had started on its own. Claudette's Hawaii trip hit a series of problems. The rental house they had booked, which Claudette had upgraded significantly after reducing the guest list and therefore the cost split, a plumbing issue discovered 4 days before departure that required the owners to offer an alternative property, smaller, in a less desirable location, at a discount that Claudette spent 2 weeks negotiating while the better properties in her original price range disappeared. Darnell's work schedule changed unexpectedly, meaning he could only join for 4 of the 7 days. And Sienna, 13 years old and at the particular age where being trapped in a small house with only her parents and younger brother for a week in a revised location held considerably less appeal than it once had, spent a significant portion of the trip, by Claudette's own later account, on her phone. I know these details because Claudette called me when she returned. Not to tell me about the trip specifically, but because she had seen my Instagram posts. I have a private Instagram account, family and close friends only, and I had posted throughout our Bora Bora trip because how could you not? The water was the color of something that does not exist in ordinary life. The bungalow was everything Sylvia had promised. Jade's photographs were extraordinary in the way that happens when a child who loves something deeply is finally given the perfect subject for it. Marcus came back from his first proper snorkeling experience changed in some quiet way that I recognize as the particular shift that happens when a young person discovers something they genuinely love. And Coop, my Coop, completed the junior marine biology experience, and was given a certificate that he carried in his hands for the entire boat ride back to the bungalow and slept with under his pillow for the first 2 nights home. Claudette had seen all of it, every post, and she called me on a Wednesday evening, about a week after we both returned, and there was something in her voice I had not heard in a long time, something stripped of its usual management and calculation, something that sounded, honestly, like my actual sister. She said, "That trip looked incredible, Renee." I said it was. A long pause. "I didn't know you were planning something like that." "I know," I said. Another pause, longer. "Coop looked so happy in that picture with his certificate." "He slept with it under his pillow," I said. "He still asks to look at it before school." I heard Claudette exhale slowly on the other end of the line, the particular sound of someone sitting with something uncomfortable they have finally decided to stop moving away from. "I should have called you," she said, "before I sent that text. I should have picked up the phone and talked to you like a sister." I did not fill the silence that followed. I let her sit in it, because she had earned it, and because sometimes the most important thing you can offer someone is the space to hear their own words after they have finally said them. Eventually she said, "I'm sorry, Renee, for how I handled it, for using Jerome's name, for not being honest about why. All of it." I believed her, not completely and not immediately, because trust is rebuilt slowly and through actions rather than phone calls. But I believed the apology was real, which was more than I had expected when I picked up the phone. I told her I appreciated her saying it. I told her the kids were okay, that they were more than okay, that what started as a painful thing had turned into something I would not trade for anything. I did not say that I had known about Bora Bora before her text arrived. I did not say that her decision, painful as it was, had freed my family for something extraordinary. Some truths are not punishments. Some truths are simply yours to keep. It has been 7 months since that trip. Coop's marine biology certificate is framed now, hanging on his bedroom wall next to a photograph Jade took of him holding a starfish on the boat, his face so completely lit up that every single person who sees that photo smiles before they can stop themselves. Jade is building a photography portfolio that her school art teacher has described as genuinely remarkable for her age. Marcus has signed up for a local diving certification course, the first step towards something he told me he thinks he wants to make a real part of his life. And Claudette and I are rebuilding something, slowly, carefully, with considerably more honesty than we managed for the years before all of this. Her children and mine see each other regularly, and the cousins have the easy, unselfconscious relationship that children maintain even when their parents are complicated, which I am grateful for every time I watch them together. The refrigerator drawing is still up. Coop added to it again recently, a second house on the water beside the first one, and when I asked him what the second house was, he said, "That's for the next time, Mommy." He said it with complete certainty, the unquestioning confidence of a child who has learned that the people who love him will find a way to make wonderful things happen, and that sometimes the most wonderful things come from the most unexpected directions. He is not wrong. I intend to prove it to him, again and again, for as long as I possibly can. If there is one thing I want you to carry away from everything I have just shared with you, it is this. When someone removes something from your children, something they were promised and had earned and were dreaming about, your first instinct will be to fight loudly, to call, to confront, to make sure everyone understands exactly what has been done and who did it. And sometimes that is the right response. But sometimes, if you are very lucky and very patient and you have a friend like Sylvia who calls you about overwater bungalows at exactly the right moment, the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. Slow, book something better, and let your children's joy be the only answer anyone ever needs. Because the best revenge, I have decided, is not making someone feel the weight of what they did. The best revenge is making sure your children never feel it at all.